This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining me on Stockbox today is Akiba Leisman, the CEO of Mako Mining, which is a gold mining and exploration company listed on the TSX with a gold project in Nicaragua, part of which is very advanced. In fact, it is producing at the moment, and that is called the San Albino Gold Project, and there's a slightly earlier stage exploration project in the Las Conchitas area. But here to tell us more, the CEO, Akiba, welcome, how are you?
Welcome, Mark. I'm doing well.
Good. It's good to have you on. I hope I said the name of the company correct. I didn't know if it was Mako or Mako, but you can correct me, and then you can tell me a high-level overview of the company and what you're all about.
Sure, it is Mako Mining, like the shark, the fastest shark in the sea. And the way that we like to describe it is that we're doing three things in northern Nicaragua. So first and foremost, we have turned on a 500 ton per day mine called the San Albino mine. We've fully built the plant. We've made our first gold pour a few months ago, and then we anticipate being in commercial production imminently. San Albino is the highest grade open pit mine in the world, bar none. We recently put out a press release saying that we were pulling out fully diluted grades, so the functional equivalent of a mill head grade of roughly 17.5 grams a ton, so well in excess of a half ounce, troy ounce per metric ton of gold over at San Albino. Now, in that design of the 500 ton per day plant, we made engineering decisions that would allow us to expand it to 1,000 tons a day, which we're actually fully permitted to do right now when we have additional feed sources, so from different deposits. The most advanced deposit that we have within that 188 square kilometer land package that contains the San Albino mine is an area a couple of kilometers to the south of San Albino called Las Conchitas. So we're right now drilling there relatively aggressively with the idea that we're going to have a maiden resource on that sometime early next year, with the idea of bringing that into the mine plan at the very, very end of 2022, and then to be mining and operating at 1,000 tons a day with very minor capex that's needed to expand our operations for that. So consider that full calendar year 2023 operating at that level. And then thirdly, and probably the most important part about what we have, is that we do think that we're sitting on an orogenic gold mining camp over at San Albino. So we currently have 188 square kilometers of concessions under our belt. We have 23 kilometers that used to be fairly untested strike, but we've done quite a bit of work of prospecting in the area. And we do think that we have the potential to find many more of these deposits on our land package. Over the course of the next week or two, we're going to be putting up some additional prospecting results in some of the regional concessions that we have. But everything that we're seeing indicates that we do have the ability to be mining at that advanced level of 1,000 tons a day, really for generations, pending exploration success on our property.
Okay, so what you've got here is massive. Then it's huge. I mean, it's the highest grading gold mine in the world. That's a significant deposit you've got there.
Yeah, open pit gold mine in the world.
Open pit gold mine. Yeah.
And one of the reasons that allows us to do this is that we do have a fairly unique geometry at our mine. Normally, when you see these narrow vein systems around the world, there are plenty of extremely high grade narrow vein mines. They tend to be subvertical in nature. So they go from the ground down to the center of the earth, so to speak. That makes it conducive for underground mining. And there's some fantastic underground mines around the world. What makes us unique, and I really don't know of another mining company that's doing what we're doing right now in terms of our open pit techniques on how we selectively mine this, is that we are mining these high grade, relatively narrow veins very selectively, but using an open cut system of effectively scraping off the waste and really just mining the high grade ore with very limited waste or I should say very limited dilution associated with this. So that really is what makes this deposit really unlike anything else out there that I'm certainly aware of globally.
Okay. And how long have you had this project, or how long has the company had this project? And, has it come from almost, grassroots exploration, or is this something that's you picked up at a more advanced stage?
Yeah, there's a long, illustrious history associated with San Albino. So this is in the country of Nicaragua.
Mm.
And Nicaragua has a very colorful political history. So the last time that this mine was a mine was in the commercial mine, was in the early 1920s. A U.S. businessman tried to open it up, and his accountant and general manager, about 6 weeks into the mine's operation, hijacked the mine, stole the gold, and then used it to finance the original Nicaraguan revolution against the U.S. Marine occupation from the 1920s.
Okay.
And his name was Augusto Sandino. So the namesake of the Sandinistas comes from our former general manager and accountant. You go to Nicaragua, there are posters of Sandino looking very cool in his very iconic hat. The ruling party is the FSLN. The S stands for Sandinista. So it is a very important project for the country's history. Now, practically speaking, this was important in that after the Marines left, and then the new military regime of the Somozas took over in the early 1930s, this effectively was put into a time capsule. So there's very, very little work that was done on it from the 1930s really to the latter part of the 1990s. So for a shallow deposit with grades like this, it's pretty extraordinary how little artisanal mining has been done on the property, simply because it was put into this time capsule for political reasons. Now, Mako used to be called Golden Rain Resources. Golden Rain picked this project up in 2009, and really their claim to fame was they did a lot of basic research about the history of the mine, and managed to find a lot of the historical documents on how these guys were mining it in the late 19th century up until the early part of the 20th century. And with that information, they were able to crack the code of what was there. So really the rediscovery of this project as it exists right now was with Golden Rain in 2009. The initial resource came out in 2012, and I make no secret about it. There was a board changeover around that time that effectively made this project dormant, right? So I used to work for a private equity fund called Wexford Capital, based in the United States. And Wexford's first foray into this company occurred in 2014. And after that investment was made, I won't go into all the details unless you're curious about it. But it really was an initial foray into the company to facilitate a merger between Golden Rain and another company that Wexford controlled at the time. It took 4 years to negotiate an acceptable merger on both parties' fronts, and we were able to consummate that deal at the end of 2018. I gave up my job as interim CEO of the other company to facilitate that merger. And about 4 months later, the other CEO left to go to another company, and I took over initially as interim CEO, early part of 2019, and then full-time CEO in August of 2019. And it was really for that moment on was the first time that there was a clear, defined strategy to advance this project in a rational manner. So even though this was a mine in the 20s, this was rediscovered by Golden Rain in 2009. The first time that there actually was an operating plan to bring this into production was really less than 2 years ago, from that August of 2019 period. Now, the capital to go and build the project as it exists right now was principally provided, but not entirely provided, by Wexford Capital. There was about US $40 million of equity raised, and then an additional $21 million of debt that was raised to bring us to the point that we are right now. We made our first gold pour at the very end of January, and we'll be in commercial production really imminently after we get through some of the debottlenecking exercises associated with the plant. The mine, as it sits right now, we would consider to be in commercial production, but the plant still needs a few debottlenecking exercises for us to fully declare that.
Okay, okay. That's a great little bit of history there, going back to the 20s. And I hope that there's not a repeat of a similar thing that happens with you, where people go off and steal the gold and use it to fund other activities. But what is a country like Nicaragua? What is it like as a jurisdiction to operate in? I mean, it seems to be pretty. If you're able to get to this far, you're obviously quite confident it's a good place to work in.
Sure. I always tell people that the biggest risk of operating Nicaragua is just that it's a small country, right? So there's 7 million people and change that live in all of Nicaragua. The GDP is maybe $14 billion. It really is not a very large country. So when you're dealing with countries of that size, it really does not take a very large movement in the political winds for there to be substantive changes. And certainly over the course of the last year globally, we've gone through some of the biggest political tornadoes that you can possibly imagine in the country. It has nothing to do with Nicaragua, but the global pandemic really has stressed a lot of jurisdictions. Budgets and balance sheets and just overall political mentality, and that's at the government level as well as the people level. That being said, Nicaragua's been fantastic. I mean, we operated in Mexico. Mexico was a very difficult jurisdiction to operate in from a personal security perspective. Some of the aspects on the legal side were bureaucratic and very, very difficult to go through. Nicaragua certainly has some of the bureaucracies that we need to work through. From a personal security perspective, it's been fantastic. I have no issues walking around at night. And then the positive about working in a country that's small is that there just aren't that many people in government, right? So the people that deal with the mines know exactly what we're doing. There's an open dialogue. We have a direct access to the top to let them know how we're advancing these projects for the benefit of all stakeholders here. So in many respects, it became easier to operate in that regard. We've made a decision over at this company to do everything at truly top level standards when it comes to environmental safety and security, using this as a template. I think the government appreciates what we're doing. And by the way, one of the main reasons why we're capable of making decisions like that is because of our grade. It is a lot easier to make those economic choices about designing our facilities with the environmental standards that we expect when you are mining grades well in excess of 10 grams, the 17.5 grams that we've been mining for the first few months of full mining operations over here. So the government appreciates that, and frankly, I've found it to be a pleasure to be operating in Nicaragua, certainly over the course of the last couple of years after I took over.
Okay. So you've mentioned there about you're ironing out some bottlenecks in the production sort of flow, and you've already made your first pour of gold back in January. So you class it as a commercially operating mine at the moment, and you're doing the exploration in the Las Conchitas area. So, but I wonder if you can just, in a few words, just say, what are the current activities? Where's the current focus and work being put into? And what can, from an investor point of view, what can people look forward to? Some sort of key upcoming pieces of news?
Sure. So, I mean, we do have, there's so much that our operating team can focus on the exploration side, and there's so much that our exploration team they can operate on the production side. Although we try to actually cross-pollinate both teams as much as possible, because they do actually learn from each other quite a bit. This is a coarse gold deposit. That being said, the type of coarse gold that we have is great in how we model it. We don't really have a discernible nugget effect. So when we drill a hole, we kind of understand what amounts of gold are in there. So for coarse gold deposits in general, you can recover quite a bit of it through gravity separation, right? So it's a series of effectively some centrifuges to separate the coarse gold from the other stuff. The other stuff then goes through a carbon in leach processing facility that we have jointly with the gravity, that will then introduce cyanide into the system. and then we will be able to extract that gold through a series of chemical and physical reactions into that carbon, and then we'll recover the carbon through a plant. Mm-hmm. So that first gold pour that we made in January, and that we're trying to debottleneck right now, is coming from that first circuit, the gravity circuit over at our mine. The actual gravity recoveries that we're seeing are greatly exceeding our expectations. And we're seeing right now well in excess of 50% of gold going to gravity. Now, that being said, there's a lot of metal that comes with this in addition to gold. There's gold, there's silver, there's some other stuff, right? Inclusive of iron and magnetic stuff. So when we first started to do this, it became apparent that we needed to have a drum magnet. So we installed a drum magnet to take out some of the iron. And likewise, when we're putting into this refinery, we're using a fairly, it's not a unique, but it's not an industry standard piece of equipment called an acacia reactor. And that allows you to take gravity concentrates and put it into solution into a highly concentrated cyanide solution over there. And we've been having some difficulties getting that running at commercial capacity. And some of that has to do with just normal startup issues. Some of that has to do with not being able to have suppliers on site while we're commissioning. So we're still involved in a global pandemic. So getting a call from a supplier to debottleneck some of these exercises is not as easy as some investors might imagine. It's probably taken us about 4 or 5 weeks longer than what we wanted to get the gravity where we need to be. The CIL, the carbon in leach system, was really completely separate. Right there, we were dealing with some components that we needed to be running in order for us to be applying cyanide within our carbon and leach tanks. Now, we were in construction of our mine last year. We were anticipating being done by December, so the very end, maybe even in January of this year. And then lo and behold, in November, Nicaragua got hit by 2 in a row, once in 100-year hurricanes. Mm-hmm. So, and they ran out of letters in last year's hurricane season. We got hit by Hurricane Eta, Greek letter Eta, and Greek letter Iota. Mm-hmm. So the tail end of the system, which certainly we weren't expecting. A lot of that managed to delay some of our last remaining items from a civil works perspective on one of the key components of our carbon and leach system, which was our tailings press. We are stacking our tailings dry, which is a top of the line way of managing tailings in this industry. In fact, the standards of this industry are going to be going in this direction. People choose not to do a dry stack tailings storage process just because of cost. It costs about 3 to 4 times as much as it does if you were going to be stacking tailings in a conventional fashion. But we made that economic decision to do a dry stack tailings storage facility simply because we're both environmentally conscious, but also we have the grade to support this economically to do that. But not getting that press built meant that press was really not fully operational until about March of this year. So an important date for us, applying cyanide to those tanks today. So that's it's going to be April 6th for your listeners who are listening at a different date. It's going to be the first day that we're actually going to be applying cyanide to the carbon in the leach circuit, in which case everything is going to be running as we expect. So we're still a couple weeks away before we would consider to be in commercial production. But we've made a lot of those debottlenecking choices and decisions and fixes, if you will, over the course of the last 2 months to get us to the position that we're in right now.
Okay. Well, Akiba Leisman, the CEO of Mako Mining, thank you very much for coming on today, giving us a little bit of an idea of what the company is all about and where you're going.
All right, I appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.